Hey investor friends, I'm Michelle Markey and I'm interrupting my normal posting schedule to bring you this bombshell breaking news that Charlie Munger sold half of Daily Journal Corporation's stake in Alibaba as of Q1 2022 in news that's fresh off the press as of April 11, 2022 when the 13F filing for DJCO just came out. So I'll speculate about why Charlie might have sold Baba and what's been going on with both Charlie and China in general. And if you also enjoy studying some of the best investors of all time, please be sure to like and subscribe to my video and YouTube channel because it's super fascinating studying what all these investors are up to, and I hope you enjoy. As one viewer commented on my channel, you could also knock me over with a feather because I'm shocked that Charlie would sell Baba after he defended it at the mid-February Daily Journal Corporation annual meeting, where he told everybody how good of a deal he thought it was in the best value for the money and what he referred to as Alibaba and one of the few investments that Daily Journal has made in years. So it's especially surprising that coming from him in being such a great investor that maybe he's having second thoughts, or maybe he got a margin call on the $40 million that Daily Journal laid out to maybe buy some Baba and other stuff, or maybe investors were not happy that Daily Journal bought this much of Baba, and maybe that got to Charlie and then he relented, and after having bought Baba in Q1 and Q3 2021, he then doubled down in Q4 2021 only to reverse that entire transaction of what happened in the fourth quarter by the first quarter in 2022. So it's really surprising that they took away 302,000 shares from the Daily Journal portfolio, and it's not clear whether Daily Journal had a profit or a loss in the transaction, but it looked like they probably broke around even because it looked like the Daily Journal portfolio was valued at around $258.5 million of market value in Q4, and then as of the end of Q1 2022, it was at around $212.5 million. So it looks like they may have gotten back about $46 million worth. So they could have had a small gain on the Baba transaction, especially if Daily Journal bought it when it was at towards its lows in Q4, maybe around $112 a share. And that's assuming they got in at the bottom of when the stock was trading at its lows in Q4. And then maybe he sold when the stock was back towards its highs in Q1 at maybe around $130 something and change per share. But who knows, maybe he didn't get the best price and maybe just was happy to break even on that transaction. And maybe Daily Journal is getting ready to use that $40 million for something else. Who knows what really went through the mind of Charlie on this move, but it's really fascinating to see that Charlie is backing away from Alibaba, and it'll be curious to see if other famous investors are backing away from Alibaba, like Greg Alexander of Sequoia Conifer Management, or also Guy Spear, or also some other known investors like Ray Dalio or Bill Miller, if they're maybe walking back from Alibaba. But let's see. So far, Charlie Munger is one of the few who has gone back on his Baba investment aside from Monish Prabrai. This seeming change of heart is really puzzling and tricky to figure out because when DJCO owned the most Baba at 602,000 shares as of Q4 2021, that made up 27 2/3 of the portfolio, and now as of Q1 2022, it's been reduced to only 15 1/3 of the portfolio. Still, its third most position, and this is out of 5 positions. But I'm still wondering if Charlie Munger will sell even more Baba in Q2 2022, or if maybe he's going to buy back in after Baba has fallen some more, because I doubt that he sold when Baba hit some of its rock bottom prices in mid-March 2022 when it went down as low as almost $73 a share. And at that point, that probably would have been a steal, but it didn't look like he had the appetite to buy even more. If he may have ditched Baba a little bit before that point in time, who knows? But instead of buying even more Baba when it's been close to its all-time lows, he seemed to have backed away from that. So that's really surprising and confusing to try to figure out. And if you have any insights, I'd love to hear from you. What's also an interesting observation is this year, as Bloomberg has just freshly reported, Munger declined to provide comment about Daily Journal's stake in Alibaba, whereas exactly a year ago, Munger provided a statement to Barrons saying that Daily Journal needs some securities as cash equivalents, and back then with US Treasury bills at very low rates of return, like the 10-year Treasury was only yielding 1% in early 2021, maybe that's why he decided that in lieu of investing Daily Journal's cash in US Treasury bills, he decided it would be better to invest in Alibaba, because he also said that unless its long-term prospects seem good, a common stock is not a good cash equivalent, but he must have decided that BABA was better than US Treasury bills for most of 2021, only to now reverse that. So maybe US Treasury bills with the 10-year at around 2% is looking way better than maybe being in this common stock currently. So it's really interesting that he was willing to comment last year, but this year he's starting to be a little bit mute on the subject. And all this is coming on the heels of Daily Journal recently announcing at the end of March 2022 that Charlie Munger would be stepping down as its chairman, but would still serve as a director and pay particular attention to the matters that he's been involved with in the past, including the company's securities portfolio. But I find this curious that the statement would say that he would pay attention to, because maybe it's not Charlie Munger who liquidated half of the BABA stake. Maybe someone else who's recently come into power at Daily Journal was the one to make the call to liquidate some of this BABA position, because if Charlie is only merely paying attention to but no longer directing position sizes, then perhaps that could be at play as well. Who knows? And in addition, it looks like Charlie Munger was donating $1 million of his Daily Journal stake, which based on the recent proxy materials, it looked like Charlie only owned 50,000 shares of Daily Journal, which at its recent high price was worth about $15.8 million on March 29, 2022. So he's really only donating a small chunk of what is almost $16 million worth of Daily Journal stock, but it's for a good cause in giving it toward a new incentive equity plan. So that's a good thing for the employees of Daily Journal, and probably helps to give some kind of confidence and faith in the future of where Daily Journal is going, because I know they're trying to figure out their software business, and the newspaper business is probably just kind of chugging along as whatever remnants of it are still relevant in its current market. But it looks like the future of Daily Journal is resting on its power to do software for the court system, as well as whatever their future investments might be in both the banking stocks that it owns, as well as this BABA stake and whatever amount that they choose to still retain of BABA. But it would be really surprising if Daily Journal were to completely leave its BABA stake, and I'm assuming that they'll probably just hold here for now. And there's some good and bad news that's affecting Chinese companies, especially if their stock is listed in American exchanges. And first, let's start with the good news, in that there's been a recent proposed rule change by Chinese regulators to allow non-Chinese government agencies to have access to the audit documents of Chinese companies. So that would be good news, because according to the US's Holding Foreign Companies Accountable Act, Chinese companies need to be compliant with the auditing access requirements by 2024, or else risk being delisted. And there's never been a mass delisting of any foreign company stocks, so it would be really surprising if these Chinese companies failed to comply with US regulations in providing the necessary access to audit documents by 2024. But until that point in time, they're not really motivated to have to provide extra or special access than is currently necessary. So this will probably become more of a hot topic closer to 2024. So let's see what happens and who will win this tug of war of providing access to audit documents. But it would be in both countries' best interest if they found a way to get along and to provide sufficient access that is both in the national security interests of China, because I'm sure they also want to protect their national secrets, as well as for foreign investors like Americans that are interested in investing in Chinese companies. Because if China were to shut out foreign investment, then that is maybe not the most wise move either. So I think that they will probably find some way to compromise and settle on something that makes sense, because Charlie Munger also is hoping for reasonable honor among nations. So let's see if they can figure things out. And then for the bad news is that there's been a lot of COVID-related lockdowns in a lot of Chinese cities, especially Shanghai, with a population of 25 million people. And although that probably sounds bad, you would think that it's technically not super terrible for something like e-commerce, because companies like Amazon were able to thrive during some of the lockdowns in the States. So why couldn't Alibaba also thrive in providing people e-commerce goods by delivery and not have to deal with in-person commerce? So this is also a little bit quizzical why some of the news outlets are saying that this current lockdown could be so bad, when Alibaba potentially has the ability to play a really crucial role in still getting people enough goods and required supplies in order to make it through the current set of lockdowns. So we'll see what happens with that. And also another piece of bad news is that China appears to be accelerating its nuclear buildup for fear over potential conflict with the US. So this is also potentially worrisome, and we'll just have to see what happens. But hopefully there will not be some kind of conflict over Taiwan or something else that's related to the Ukraine-Russia situation as well. I know all of this is top of mind for us in being concerned for a lot of geopolitical risks, but again, let's hope that everything works out for the better. And in some happier news, if Chinese stocks are not your cup of tea, maybe you might want to consider following along with what Warren Buffett has been up to, where it seems like he has Berkshire Hathaway going on a shopping spree, because this year he's bought a big stake in Occidental Petroleum, just as Carl Icahn was leaving Oxy, and then he also bought Allegheny Insurance, so that will also be a nice complement to Berkshire's portfolio of insurers, including Geico and National Indemnity and others, as well as he recently plowed about $4.2 billion into Hewlett-Packard, or HP, and we all know HP to be a maker of computers and printers, and he's probably intrigued by their printer ink subscription business, because I'm sure they're making a pretty penny off of people having to buy loads of printer toner, and that probably yields a good chunk of margin, since printer toner costs a lot of money. So I'm sure HP is probably doing well there, even though I haven't studied it close enough. So that might be something to look into to see what moves Warren Buffett has been making, because he doesn't seem to have been lured by any Chinese stocks lately. He seems content with buying plenty of American stocks. So maybe there will be some gems to find there. Who knows? But let's see how both of them will continue to invest throughout the year, depending on what Charlie Munger decides to do with some freed up cash, and also with Buffett still probably having more than $100 billion worth of cash. And if anything, maybe we'll have some of these questions answered by both Buffett and Munger at the upcoming Berkshire Hathaway annual meeting at the end of April 2022. I will be there, and let me know if you'll be there. Maybe our paths will cross along the way, and it's sure to be a really fun time, and I'm looking forward to it. And I hope you'll also enjoy learning from it. If you can't be there in person, it will be live streamed, so you're sure to get a lot out of the wisdom of both Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett either way. And if you enjoyed this video or learned something, please like and subscribe, and I wish you well on your journey to being the best investor you can be. Till next time.